going on, everyone? Welcome back to another terrarium build. We're doing something a little bit different today. I'm actually out in the woods here, and it's far and few between that we're gonna get days this nice in November, and we're almost in December now moving forward. So I really wanted to just get out here and get some materials. You know, regardless of the time of the year, you could still make a native terrarium if you really want. You just gotta know where to look, and obviously everything is seemingly dead around me, but we should be able to find some solid materials here. A few plants. There's definitely some stuff in my front yard we could use, but I want to come back here and find what I can, because stuff that's back here is going to be a little bit different than what we can find in my yard. So we're not actually going to build a new terrarium today. What we're going to do is actually revamp that native terrarium that I just showed in a update a few weeks ago. And what I want to start out by doing is getting some leaf litter. And you may remember from that update I said that the microfauna, specifically the worms and the isopods, they may have been eating all of the plants, and that's really why I suspect that it died to begin with. But I want to get some leaf litter so we could actually feed them, and they will more readily eat the leaf litter than they will the plants. So what we're going to do is we'll come down here and we'll get some leaf litter. What we've got here is some nice leaf litter, and whenever you're sourcing leaf litter, you want to find stuff that's pretty dry. Luckily it hasn't been raining, so we've got some really nice dry leaves here. So we're gonna collect what we need. I've been looking around and I found this really nice patch of moss and lichen. I'm gonna just try to take the whole thing here, and hopefully that will do pretty well in our terrarium. Actually, I'll take a couple of patches because I think this stuff looks pretty nice. Whenever you're looking for native plants, and the best time to do this obviously is whenever it's fall time or even winter, but if you can find plants like this where they're still green this far into the cold season, it's usually a good indication that they'll do well in a terrarium. So we're gonna get these guys. So now we're back at my place, and there's all these nice plants lining my driveway. I definitely want to get these mosses here, and then I'll grab whatever other plants I think would look good in this terrarium. So after boiling these leaves for a good 20 minutes or so, I want to dry them off a little bit just so that we can use them a little bit quicker. But I'm going to take them all out of this container here. And I should also mention that I boiled a few sticks and stuff in with them, and that's my preferred method for sanitizing wood. But we'll just set those off to the front here. I even got some acorn caps, but I'm gonna turn this paper towel in here around because it's pretty much still dry. So what we'll do is we'll just get our leaf, put it in here and pat it between the towel, and look at that, pretty dry, ready to go. And so by drying these, we will allow them to have a pretty much indefinite shelf life because they're not going to be getting moldy or anything like that. And you can just keep them in a Ziploc bag and use them whenever you need to. When all is said and done, you end up with a nice batch of leaves, and they still feel somewhat damp, but they're mostly dry. So before you store them, I recommend just letting them sit out, and even if you would just like spread them over a surface like this and allow them to really become bone dry, so to speak, so that way whenever you store them there's no moisture whatsoever, and really you could just put them in a Ziploc bag and they will last long term. So before me are all of the materials that I gathered, and unfortunately I wasn't able to spend as much time back in the woods as I would have liked, but I got a decent amount of things. We've got some nice moss and lichen over here. I also got some grasses and a few miscellaneous plants. And then over here I also got some more moss. This is thread moss and this type of plant, which I'm not sure what it is, but last time I used it in the terrarium it worked out pretty well. And of course we've got our leaf litter and a few pieces of bark and wood, a couple of acorn caps and whatnot. So overall I think we're about ready to go. The last thing I want to do is just dip these plants in water and let them soak while we prepare the container. Soaking the plants here is kind of a twofold thing. So the first thing is with the moss, it definitely does best when it's well hydrated. So soaking it is going to get it nice and hydrated for use in a terrarium. And then with these other plants, we kind of want to drown any pests that are in there. Now of course you could use more thorough preventative measures to kill any pests, but in a terrarium I don't really think it's too necessary to try to eliminate everything. So the reason I put these on there is if there's anything that could fly, it's not going to be able to get out, and ideally we would like it to drown. But we're going to rinse these a few times and hopefully remove everything. With all of our materials in check, it's about time to start revamping this terrarium. And if you remember from the update, I said that I wanted to start out by doing my best to remove all of the microfauna in here, so that way we could just transfer them to the new setup later on. So what I have here is a little container, and what we're going to do is just put a little bit of leaf litter in here, and we'll corral up all of the isopods and any of the worms that we see, and we'll put them in here. And we're going to put all of the same substrate in here as well, because I imagine that we're not going to be able to get all of the microfauna, but we'll do the best that we can. We'll start by opening this thing up, and it's going to be a lot easier said than done to get all of these little guys out of here. So what I want to do is take this out first and kind of shake it off, because I know that there's some on here. And yep. See one there. And I think that they're actually just living in this thing. So what I want to do is just put it in a garbage bag to keep them from escaping into my room. So we'll open this thing up and we'll put it on in there. And I tied it up as well. So driftwood in check. So now I'm going to come in here and do the best that I can to remove whatever isopods I can find. And of course I saw so many of them just a little bit ago, but I can't seem to find any right now. I wonder if it would be easier to put the substrate in something and then dig through to find them. I don't really want to harm them though. Oh, check this out. That's cool. Little millipede. Interesting. I was finding it just way too difficult to pick through here and find all of the microfauna. So what I'm going to do is get all of the dirt and different materials into this container and then kind of sift through it that way. So I'm just going to gently pick up the dirt here and drop it in and kind of spread it out as I do so. As I dig through this dirt and really just start dropping it in here, I just can get a good glimpse of how much life is actually in this substrate. So although the plant life is kind of lacking, there is so much microfauna in here, which is pretty cool. Like as I drop that in there, you can just see a ton of isopods start coming out. And isopods are the same thing as pill bugs, woodlouse. Generally, I will actually refer to these kind as woodlouse, but I feel like most people online refer to them as isopods, so I'll just say that's it. You guys know what I'm talking about. Now we're down into the false bottom layer, you know, all these rocks here, and what I'm going to do is just pick these out one by one and clean them off, because it looks like there are a bunch of woodlouse living down in here, so I just want to kind of get them off the rocks. Now that we're down to the bottom here, I just really want to try to clean all this dirt out of here. And typically this much dirt would not be in the false bottom, but since there were those worms in here, they really just kind of reworked this all to their own design. And I don't see any in here, so maybe they're all gone. That would be a plus. If we only have isopods in here, I'm alright with that for sure. But the worms were kind of enjoyable to watch. And right now I'm just trying to look in here to make sure nobody's left in here. We don't want any man left behind. I'm not going to show this part, but I'm going to go take this container outside and rinse it, and then we'll be right back. Now we have the container all clean, and I just want to dry it off to get it as clean as possible, because there's a little bit of residual dirt on the glass and whatnot, so we'll just clean this off the best we can. Now we can dry off the lid. So the main reason that I wanted to clean off this container is just so that we had as clean of an environment as possible. Clearly we're already using established materials such as the driftwood and substrate and whatnot. There's already microfauna thriving in it, so that's a good thing. But the container itself, it's not going to hurt to get it nice and clean, and then we'll just be able to see into the terrarium better that way as well. So it's mainly why I'm doing this. Next, I want to clean some of the dirt off of these rocks here, which were in the false bottom. So I'm putting a little bit of dechlorinated water in here, and I'm just going to mix them around in there. So we got the rocks all nice and clean, and we will just dry them off a bit. Now the container is totally clean and the rocks are clean as well, so we can make the false bottom once more. I'm simply going to place all of the rocks down into the base of the container like before. With all of the rocks in place, we can now place our mesh barrier back in once again, and we'll just get it in here so that all of the edges curl upward like it did beforehand. This time around I cut a little circle out, and it's the exact size of the opening of the container. And this is just some knitting mesh, and the reason that I did that was I'll put it over top of the window screen mesh. And with it over top of the window screen mesh, the idea is that it will press this mesh up against the edges of the container and sort of deter microfauna from getting down underneath of the mesh. Now it will probably still occur, but I just don't want them to be able to get all of that substrate down in there like they did previously. The terrarium is finally ready to go. We're going to put all of the materials in it, and what I'm going to start out by doing is putting a really thin layer of some more native substrate here. And this is actually the exact same stuff that I harvested whenever I made the initial video for this terrarium. So we're just gonna kind of put it in here and do like we typically would. With a little bit of that down, I'm just gonna rip up some leaves, some of this leaf litter, and just kind of put it in here. Most of the microfauna are gonna dig down into the substrate, so the isopods, all of that sort of thing, they're gonna dig down in here and eat these leaves. So we'll get them down in there, and just a real thin layer. And this is the placement of the driftwood I want. I want it to be slightly different than last time, so we'll put it there, or possibly even right here. So it will be the same look from either side, but before I do that, I want to put some of the actual substrate in here. Pay close attention as I start to drop this substrate down in here. You'll really see how it is quite alive. There's a lot of stuff living in it, so I'm really going to try to preserve it when I put it in here. And by that I mean I don't really want to compact it at all, because I don't want to kill any of the microfauna. I'll say inevitably I probably will accidentally kill something, but my intent is not to do that. I'm going to compact this ever so slightly. I'm just being trying to be very gentle with all of this, because I don't want to harm any of the isopods or whatever other microfauna might be living in here. So here it is, all in its former glory. So what I want to do, I'm trying to figure out which side I want to be the viewing side. Let me see what I like better. I actually think I would prefer if the side that, I would prefer that the side that you're seeing right now be the viewing side. So here's this plant right here. It's still alive. It has some new growth here on it. What I'm going to do is just trim off the dead stuff and plant it right on back into here. So it is a taller growing plant, so I'm going to put it back in here, kind of dig down with my tweezers and press it on down in there. Now I'm going to start getting all of our plants that we just harvested. I'm going to dump all of this water out first, and these are the patches of moss, which are looking quite nice since they're all hydrated now, but I actually want to rinse them off one more time just to get them as clean as we can possibly get them. So kind of just dropping them in here. Next, what I want to do is put some fresh dechlorinated water into here, and we will dip our plants in here real quick just to try to get them as clean as possible. So I'm going to kind of clean them off slightly, dip them on in there. And really, I'm just trying to do what I can to remove visible pests. I don't really care so much about anything else that I might bring in. Oh, we got a worm. I found a worm. Should I put him in? I think I'll put him in. There he is. I'm gonna put him in. Hopefully not. Hopefully it won't be a regret. Try to find a good spot for these plants. I'm thinking I want to put the one back in here by that other plant that we put in earlier. So kind of dig a hole down in there, and maybe actually I'm going to take this wood out. I gotta be quick about it because there's probably isopods all over it now. I'm gonna put this plant in. Right here. We're gonna build up substrate in the back, flatten it in the front, and get this. How was it? Okay, yeah, it was pretty much like this. And we're gonna put the grass right next to it in the back. So we'll do it right in here. I feel like I pretty much got the background to look the way that I want. Pretty simple. And now I want to start putting all this moss in here. And I'm going to go heavy on the moss this time around. I didn't really do that much last time. Now the terrarium's more or less completed. I have all of these little guys that I rounded up earlier. So what I want to do is kind of get some of this leaf litter from in here, as well as the microfauna, of course. So what I want to do is I'm just going to hide the leaf litter down in here, and I might put a few sections of it in areas that are more visible. But ideally, I just want to kind of hide most of this down in here. I'm gonna kind of do the best I can to, pull this plant over top if it's really just like a section is peeking out. At this point, it's pretty much done. I just gotta add a little bit of water, and I'm pretty much just going to just put in a tad. I'm hardly gonna put anything in here, just since these are temperate plants. They don't need nearly as much moisture as the tropical plants that I'm typically putting in a terrarium, so I'm just doing a little bit down in there, and we'll call it a day. I'm trying to clean off the sides of the container as I put this in there. I don't know, I'm thinking that's probably enough water. What I'll do now, this is pretty easy to do. Just get yourself a little paper towel, get your tweezers, press them firmly in there, and you just go around and scrub the glass. That about does it. Get our cap here and put it on like so. I think we'll end it there. What do you guys think about the terrarium this time around? I think I like it a lot better than the first time I did it, although I think it was still pretty strong the first time around. Anyways, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my videos. I know that you could be doing anything else, but instead you're sitting here watching my videos, and I really do appreciate that. So I try to put a lot into these videos, and really I try to make the best edutainment that I possibly can. That's education and entertainment into one entity. So if you learned something new or like the presentation overall, please give me a thumbs up. It only takes a second and it helps me to continue doing what I'm doing. And on that note, I appreciate you guys. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.